Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Sierra, the dietitian, and today's cooking demo, I have Mary Driscoll with me here. Mary is one of our community health representatives for the Polson area. But Mary approached me because she knew that I was doing some demos on food preservation, and she's like, hey, I know how to can fish. I've canned fish a lot, especially when she was living in Alaska. So I'll let Mary kind of explain her experience with canning. And I have never canned fish before, so I'm using resources from the University of Montana Extension to help guide us. And I'm happy to share those resources. There's plenty of food safety resources for canning through the USDA and Extension. But you can also tune in here and learn how to can fish safely. So, Mary, you wanted to talk about your canning experience. Yes. And your canner here.
I did. Okay, so I lived in Alaska for 14 years, and I canned a lot of salmon and halibut. And this is my canner that I've used all of that. I've canned several cases with this. It's an all-American pressure canner cooker, and this has got the gauge on it. It's not a weighted one. Back in the old days, they had the ones that had the weight that would. Those are the kind my mom had, and they also had a rubber rim in them. This one is nice because I don't have to worry too much. I know exactly where my pounds of pressure are with this gauge, and then this is the pressure thing. So when it's down like this, it's letting steam out, but when I pull it up, it won't let steam out. And that's what I want to do for the canning process. And then when it's time to turn it off, I'll pull this out and let it steam vent first before I pull the lid off. So this lid is a big heavy thing. I've already got water in here. I've got about this much water in here. And I have one of these trays in the bottom. This lid, you have to make sure you put it on evenly and crank it down evenly, like this side, then this side, and this side. And when we get it loaded, I'll show you how we crank it down. And it has a little rubber gap right here, which you always have to make sure is soft and moist. And this one's soft and moist right there. You can keep them soft and moist by putting oil on them. So that's the canner.
And how much did you pay for this?
Almost 30 years ago, I paid $125 for it. So, and it's sturdy. Been with me. We've done a lot together. She's a good girl. So now I'm going to, this is the lake trout.
So all the fish that we're doing today comes from Blue Bay. So thank you to the NRD folks out that way for donating the fish. It's trout and maybe some whitefish potentially from Flathead Lake.
It's lovely, lovely, lovely. So this has been frozen and we've defrosted it. So I am going to skin it. Like, this is not a real fillet knife, but this knife works well enough. So you just put it halfway down through the skin and just pull. And it just skins nicely. You just pull it right off the skin. And you can with the skin on.
Some people just don't like the texture, so we're just removing the skin, but you could keep it on. You could also keep the bones in there too for extra calcium. Ours, I think, don't have any bones, so.
Yeah, and I try to get as much as the fat, the fish fat on it as well, because that's so good for us. This stuff is still pretty frozen, but I've showed you how to skin. I'll let that defrost a little bit more, and we'll start packing a jar. So we've got 2 size jars we're going to work with today, and I like the wide mouth jars because they're easy to pack as opposed to the jars that you use for like jams and jellies. They have this lip on them and they're not easy to pack. So I prefer the wide mouth jars. So, and then we're going to start with putting some seasonings. Basically, we're just going to do a quick, let's just do a little bit of salt and pepper. So
just whatever your preference is.
Yeah, you don't have to put a whole lot of salt in, just a little bit works, because you can always salt more after you've already eaten it. So this is a half teaspoon, so I've got about a quarter teaspoon of salt in here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of pepper. Ooh, that's kind of a lot, but it'll work. We know what to have the lemon zester. We need a lemon zester. Just put a little lemon in it. I can start zester it for you. Some lemon zest going. We can put that on the top. So what we do is we just take all this fish that we just skinned, excuse me, and just pack it in there. That's all you gotta do. And you pack it up to about an inch from the top where the lip starts. Pack it up to there. Okay, so that's one jar. And then with a smaller jar, we do the same. I need to put some. So this one, we'll put just a little bit of dill. You don't want to overpower the fish. A little bit of salt. Salt. And this is garlic and herb seasoning. Let's just give it a try. A little bit in there. Ooh, that's going to be tasty. And then get a little bit of lemon zest.
It's final sale.
Oh. Just a little bit. We don't need all of that. And again, we just pack all the fish in there. Push it down.
Is there like a rule to like how much or like headspace? Like stuff like
Yep,
that?
up to the lip. See where the lip starts? Right where the ridge is? Right up to there.
So give it about an inch of headspace.
Yep. And these jars have been washed. We fully sanitized and washed them. But you do not want cold jars. You want room temperature jars, or even you can put them in a warm bath of water, because you don't want to put cold stuff in an already hot environment, because it'll pop the jar. And that's why I want this fish to be a little more room temperature as well, because I don't want to put frozen fish in the canner, because that would make the jar pop. We don't want to pop jars. And if you do can a load and a jar pops, that doesn't mean everything in the canner is bad. It's just that one jar is just a mess, but everything else is okay. Because I've canned and I've had jars pop on me, but everything else was fine. You just got to wipe the jars down really good. So I'm not really paying attention to my recipes and stuff I'm putting in here. But this is whitefish, and it'll can lovely, and it will take on its own little bit of flavor, especially when you want to take it out and cook with it. I mean, you can treat it just like tuna fish, make tuna fish casserole, you can make fish tacos with it. I mean, the list goes on, whatever your imagination wants to go into this.
Sorry.
There was a jar.
It did not break though.
It didn't break. So I have to do 4 big jars.
So if the skin is on it when you do it, and when you use the fish, it's okay to eat the skin?
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll dissolve, or?
It won't dissolve. It'll just be cooked though.
Okay.
Yep.
And if you skinned it, what uses could you use for the skin? So we're not wasting everything.
Oh, right in the garden.
Compost.
Compost, that would be great compost. Oh, Sierra, you want to talk a little bit about the mercury in the fish and how it's debunked that myth?
Yes. So a lot of folks are kind of nervous, you know, at least what I've heard from patients, they're kind of nervous or wary of eating the fish from the flathead lake. So I've been working with the NRD folks, as well as some MSU folks that work out at the biological station. We're working on getting the consumption guidelines updated, so the tribes do have their own consumption guidelines. As you we have plenty of these packets to give out, so if you're curious, you can always come pick one up. But it has the information on the back side for how much fish you should eat, and based on the size. So a lot of the mercury or PCBs, the contaminants that folks are scared to eat, they're in the bigger fish, right? The smaller fish, not so much. So on their chart here, it says women and children, they could have 5 servings of a trout if it's under 14 inches. And as the bigger the fish is, the less they can eat, right? Because of the contaminant content. So it says for women and children, avoid any fish that are 26 inches or longer. For adults, so like adult men, they can eat more of the contaminated fish and not have as much of an effect. So they're cut off at the 30 inches plus. So if you're curious if the fish is safe to eat or not, check out the tribe's consumption guides. It has a lot of good information about mercury and PCBs. Something new that I learned recently working with the NRD folks is mercury is in the muscle of the fish, so there's really not a way that you can cook it out or anything. However, PCBs are stored in the fat of the fish. So if you cook a fish and allow for the fat to drip off, you can decrease the amount of PCBs in that fish fillet or that piece of fish by cooking off some of that fat. So we have some little handouts too, like a smaller guide. You can put it in your wallet, take it with you when you go fishing. It just kind of has the same information as the other brochure with the different sizes of fish that are safe or not safe to eat, depending on if you're a man, woman, or child. We also have a lot of great recipes, so you'll learn about this food preservation method with Mary here. But we do a lot of other cooking demos, and the NRD folks actually have a whole kind of catalog of fish recipes. So I can share those as well, because there are so many different ways to cook fish, and fish is one of the most nutritious protein sources you could eat because of the healthy fat content. Because of, you can get calcium and vitamin D through the bones. So there's just so many good health benefits. It's an excellent source of protein. So there's so many health benefits to eating fish, and most people do not eat the recommended, 2 servings of fish a week. So hopefully, we have so much good local, delicious fish available to us. Hopefully this will inspire you to eat a little bit more fish.
And once we get this canned, the convenience of it being canned and in your cupboard, that'll be nice for like quick meals.
Definitely. This is, it takes a little bit of time to can everything, but you'll have your cupboard stocked. And like Mary said, they can make for quick and easy meals. And if you can properly, right, in a food safe method like we're going to do today, you can store your canned, unopened fish in your pantry. It doesn't have to be refrigerated or frozen. It could just be on your pantry shelf, and it'll be good for a year, as long as it's not opened, as long as that seal isn't broken.
Yeah. And after the canning process, we'll listen. We'll put the camera on the jars when they're cooling, and the lids will pop, and that'll tell you that they're actually officially cooked and pressurized.
Yep, and I just wanted to point out too, because Mary kind of talked about her specific canner here, and the differences, you could get weighted or not, or hers with the gauge. The Montana State University Extension, their guide to canning, home canning meat, poultry, and fish, they first have you look at your elevation, because depending on the elevation that you're at, it could affect the boiling point of water. So if you're at a higher, elevation, it's going to take a little bit longer to boil that water. So I have highlighted here Polson. We're in Elmo right now, but they don't have Elmo, so closest is Polson. So we're above 2,900 feet in elevation. So you use that information, and then you go to this chart here. This top one is for the dial gauge pressure canner. They also have a table if you have the weighted gauge pressure canner though too. And then you pick whatever meat you're doing. So we're doing fish, we're doing raw fish, we're doing it in pint-sized jars. And based on the elevation, we're above 2,000 feet. So we could do 12 pounds at 100 minutes. So we're gonna We might do a little more than that, but
Yeah, so
Just about
we're gonna
that.
stack 2 levels. I'm gonna put the big jars at the bottom level first, because you can see that on the pressure canner, and then we're gonna put this on, and then we'll put the smaller jars on it, so we can do this in 2 levels.
But using a guide like this, like I said, the USDA also has guides, as well as the National Center for Home Food Preservation. They have a lot of good resources. So if you're interested in doing food preservation, worried about the food safety, reach out to us. We're happy to help. Extension is also another great resource. But finding these reliable resources online are pretty easy too. So I can share some of that as well.
Yeah, and if you guys have any comments of something else you want to see, like more of how we prep the jars or anything like that, please make comments, because we can make a future video with more explanation. So any comments like that are greatly appreciated.
Can you give like a couple brief recipes like we could use with it, like salmon patties or?
Yep, so I've done salmon patties. Those work out really well because all you have to do is mash it, you pan fry it. They're canned, so I've just put like canned salmon on salads, kind of made it into a tuna salad, but you're using the canned trout or whitefish, That's a good way to use it. I don't know, how else do you use your canned fish?
If it's good, then I can just eat it on crackers.
Yep.
But then I do like salmon loaf.
Yep.
So you could do a fish loaf.
Yep.
And just make it like a meatloaf, but just substitute the fish. What else did I make? Lots of fish cakes. I like to mix breadcrumbs in with this, flake it up, put breadcrumbs and an egg, and make little cakes and cook that. And I think it would be really fun to do some with an air fryer. I've not experienced that yet, but that would be fun to try and do some air fryer recipes with this.
Fish tacos.
Yep, fish tacos, of course.
Yep, fish tacos. And this stuff skins real easy as well. When I lived in Alaska and we'd catch salmon, we got the whole salmon that we actually had to clean, then fillet, then skin. We were so lucky to get it just already like this.
Yep, NRD did a lot of the work for us.
And we thank them.
Yes.
So normally with this canner, it'll do 15 or 14 of these large jars, a layer of 7 and a layer of 7. I'm just gonna wing it with the little guys. I'm sure we'll get them all in there. So, but all of this salmon was 6 of these bags. That's how much we defrosted. And this is the final bag.
And how many jars do you have there?
Well, there's 12 of the smaller ones and then 6 of the bigger ones. So we're gonna have 18 jars.
So with 6 of those bags, you can make 18 jars.
Roughly, yeah.
What other spices can you put in?
Oh, when I can salmon, we put liquid smoke and brown sugar and stuff, but I know liquid smoke is really not good for you.
Yeah.
But putting brown sugar in, actually, we should put a little bit of sugar in a couple of these jars just to see what it tastes like. Brown sugar.
I personally really like lemon or citrus with fish, so oranges or lemon. We talked about doing lemon pepper seasoning. We went with the fresh lemon. We have the Mrs. Dash garlic herb seasoning we're going to use. We have some dill. I really like dill with fish as well. I think that's a good flavor combination. Some we're just going to do plain salt and pepper. I think we're going to do a couple more spicy, adding the red pepper flakes. So it's kind of whatever you want, whatever flavoring you want.
Yeah. The only thing is you really can't mark the jar of what you put in if you're doing all assorted stuff.
Yep, because the water will get rid of it.
So you just gotta have to remember what level. So if I put one combination on the first level, another combination on the second level. That'll give me an idea of
Yep.
what is what.
Can you put a lemon wedge on top or slice?
Yeah, you could. We could cut this lemon and stick lemons right on the top. You can even put vegetables in with it. I've canned a lot of stew and meat in this as well. And so if you make stew, you can just can it and keep it like this. All kinds of vegetables. You can mix vegetables with that and can it like that. That would be very interesting. So you pack this up to just the bottom of this lip, but it's actually going to shrivel up pretty much in the cooking process.
And that's just important because you have to have some air in there. We're gonna try and get some out, but they leave that little top spot or space. They call that the head space, just so there is some area for air to move or things to move around if needed.
So in the cooking process, does it turn to liquid? Some
Nope.
of it? Is there juices?
No, it'll still say solid.
It just cook. It basically just. Have you ever heard of like sous vide, where they put a piece of meat in a tightly packed, vacuum packed like piece of plastic thing, and then they boil it, and that's how they cook it. So it's like doing that. It's just putting it in a container and sticking it in boiling water. So the fish isn't going to get gross and mushy from the water, but it's just exposed to the pressure and the heat, so that it does cook to a safe temperature.
Okay, now this part, I'm gonna slide all this away. Because what we do is we have to wipe all the
tops of
tops, make sure this is all clean, so there'll be a good connection with the rubber
Good seal.
lid.
Yeah, you want a good seal. Because if you don't, if you are, canning and you notice that they become unsealed, you have to start it all over. That's the recommendation. If the processing is interrupted, start again using the same method, timing, pressure.
This jar
original
is a
directions.
little cold because the fish was thing. I don't think we should put it here. We'll put this in some warm water just to cook that up because it's a little too cold to put in there. Because you want everything at least room temperature or warmer before you put it in there. Because I've already got that water going because it takes a long time for it to get it up to speed. So these are all good to go. We have all the lids in here. We have them all cleaned up. We washed them. So if you don't, the one thing I would say you must do is put the date on the fish. You don't have to label what's,
Yep.
what ingredients, but make sure it's dated.
Yep, after you get it all out, label, date it, because you definitely, it can last a year in your pantry, and if you're like me, you're probably gonna forget when you canned it, when you put it in there,
So anyway, you screw these down, not till they're, you don't want to make them tight, just enough like that, okay? You don't want to make it tight for this initial seal. Okay, so now I've got the water just heating up, so it won't take so long. Pull this off, set it down. So what I'm doing is I'm put these larger ones in first. And they all just kind of go, so I'll just circle them all up like this on the one like that. They all just go on the rack like that. And you don't really want them to touch each other. They can be very close, but just not touching because they're going to be rattling and shaking during the process. I already heard, there's yeah, and then make sure the lids are on tight because if one's like cross-threaded or something, that's not good. Alright, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 large jars. We'll see how many 6. So we get 8. Oh, okay, and then 3 small jars fit in there. And then I'll put this on top. Put the rest of these jars on this end. So, but there's only this much water in there.
But with the lid on and steaming, they'll still get exposed to the water.
Yeah, it gets hot. You'll see as the pressure goes up.
So not only is it the temperature that's cooking the fish, but the pressure that is created will also cook the fish.
Yeah, people can even get commercial canners, aluminum canners. I've seen a lot of that in Alaska. These people would ship the fish. Come on, where's my arrow? Did I turn my canner around? I just did. Arrow has to match. Yep. Okay, so this has an arrow and a guide on the pan itself to show you that you've got it in the right spot. So then you flick it in. So you just screw these down, crisscross from each other. Not all at once. Can't cross them. Don't put them down hard. Just enough to hold them in place, and then you go around, and then you can tighten them up. And you just got to make sure that inside the canner is all pretty even. Make sure there's the even gap all the way around. All right, so it's on, and we're going. So now we're going to set it on almost high. And as soon as it gets to 10 pounds of pressure, then we're going to try and turn the stove down and just keep it right at that 10 pounds. And as soon as we've got it stabilized at 10 pounds, then we'll time it for 100 minutes.
Okay.
Great. Perfect. All right, so we've had the canner on for about 20 minutes now, and it's finally up to 10 pounds of pressure. I can't turn it around for you to see, but it's clearly marked on this gauge, 10 pounds of pressure. So now I have to watch it closely and turn it down and wait till it stabilizes, and then when I know it's going to stay at 10 pounds of pressure, that's when I start counting 100 minutes. So I think it's pretty stable now. So what time is it?
2:04.
2:04 and 100 minutes. What is that?
240 minutes.
So 3:45.
Okay, so 3:45. This is when this will be finished. All right, so this has been pressurized at 10 pounds of pressure for 100 minutes. The gauge you gotta watch the gauge because sometimes it likes to fluctuate up a little higher, and that's not a big deal. You just don't want it to get into a caution zone where, everything's gonna start exploding inside your thing. Inside the pot, excuse me. Anyway, so we just shut it off, and I'm gonna slide it, let me get pot holders. I'm going to slide it off the hot burner, and then I'm going to pull up. Oh, and at the beginning of the video, I said this has to be straight up. I was wrong. It has to be down. So I'm going to let the steam off of it by pulling it up. But I'm going to use tongs because this steam will burn. And that's how it's depressurizing. All right, so we released the pressure, the steam on this, and the gauge is back down to 0 now, so it's safe to take the lids off. And then we'll use this to dip in there and get the hot jars out, and we'll just place them over here on this mat with the paper towels. This is always like the big reveal.
Is it all
I might have to
tight?
get somebody with some strength because it's tightened up so much during the process.
Oh wow, these are tough.
Thanks, Whisper.
Good idea using your sleeve. Okay.
Just down, get the hot holder. Hold this and turn this. Voila! Nothing on the top half broke.
No explosions.
No explosions. So, but these are very hot. That's why we have to use this. See, look at that.
Ooh.
Nice and cooked and bubble and boil. So I'm excited for these to cool down so I can open one up and taste this fish. Oh, so one thing I wanted to talk about is after I had filleted all the fish and stuffed the jars, my fingers were all fishy smelling. So lemon juice just takes that off. And, you know, it's like have short fingernails, or you can wear rubber gloves, you know, filleting the fish or packing it in the jars. But that is something to address, is getting fishy, stinky hands. And I'm going to pull this. Oh, you can hear the lids pop. They're already sealed.
So the popping is a good sign.
Yep, the popping means that they're healed, or sealed. Okay. So always layer, the jars on the first layer are always going to be a little bit grimier, but that's the process. All you do is wipe the jars off and then get a date on them. So we just had like a variety of recipes. None of them were all very strange. So we're not going to be able to mark what kind of recipes. So if one's better than the other, we won't know which was what, but we can work on recipes next time. If you guys out there want another demo on canning, I'm happy to do it. I've canned meat, I've canned stew. And I think it's a great way to fill your pantry with nice hearty food. Let's see, that one popped. You could hear that.
So is the salt more for flavor, or is it?
It's for flavor. You don't have to put salt in it.
So it doesn't act as a preservative either?
No.
Oh.
Good question. Thank you. I mean, I'm sure it does at some point, but it's just more for flavor. Because nobody eats anything that's bland. Two left. And now all right, so in a few minutes we're going to start hearing this pop, 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 pop. And it's all these lids that are sealing. So after they're cooled down enough, I'll take it, I'll wipe all the jars down, and I'll tighten the lids and put a date on everything. And we'll be good to go.
So we got some canned fish for you guys. If you want some, come get them.
Yeah. I wish you could smell. No.
It smells awfully fishy in here.
All right. All right.
Thank you, Mary.
Next time.